What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso, joined as always by Connor Rogers. First post-game party of the season. It comes in week 2. The New York Jets, in somewhat excruciating fashion, beat the Tennessee Titans 24-17. They win, they cover, they get the stop late. We're going to talk about it all because the Jets are playing another game in like 6 hours. Connor, how you doing? How you feeling?
Feeling good. A much needed win. I mean, it's not all that matters. I kind of hate when people say that, but what matters most is that the Jets come out of this weekend with a win over a team that they're expected to be a team that, full transparency now after 2 weeks, let's call it like it is. I think Tennessee's defense is going to be a lot better than they were given credit for before the season. I think that, one, they did make big moves on this defense, right? Like L'Jarius Sneed was a big move. They have Jeffrey Simmons. Devondre Sweat looks good next to him. Harold Landry's back healthy. Denard Wilson, who was on the Jets coaching staff for a long time, is an up-and-comer as their defensive coordinator. So that's number one. And then number two, something that you and I were talking about right before it started, when you really have perspective right now, and I'm not making an excuse for the Jets. So we will spend today's show getting into what is things that are wrong with the Jets right now that need to be cleaned up if they want to get to where they think they can go this year. But the Raiders beat the Ravens, right?
Yep.
Jacksonville doesn't really look very good this year right now. After this is a big year for Jacksonville right now. The 49ers lose to Minnesota. I mean, Dallas gets smoked by the Saints. It's just the Lions lose it's weird. Like, people have just written off the Bucs this year and for no reason, and the Lions, who are a Super Bowl very chalky Super Bowl pick, lose to the Bucs. You know, the Chiefs really barely got by Cincinnati. It's just Arizona smoked the Rams. I mean, absolutely smoked them. Like, and
chaos
the point of
early in the year.
The point of all this is there's just a lot of parity across the league, and it's really hard to win in the NFL. And the Jets right now are not a team that knows how to win. And I think that extends from the coaching staff to most of the roster, but the coaching staff's the biggest issue of it. But they have a guy under center that does, and he is going to do everything he can to show them how to win, while this defense, who it's dealing with a lot of injuries right now, tries to get back to the form it's had before with a lot of the same players and coaches. So it's not that the only thing that matters is a win, because that's not true. There's a lot of stuff they need to fix, not only in the next 3 days, but across the soft part of their schedule. But the most important thing is they are 1-1 now instead of 0-2. And it's a big step. And I think it takes a lot of pressure off of a team that after the first quarter, it felt like they were just sinking and everything around them. And then everything kind of turned.
Yeah, we were staring at the edge of disaster for a moment there. And then by the grace of Will Levis,
it's unbelievable,
this game started to turn, right? It was 7-0. The Titans looked like they were about to go up 14-0. We get sort of a ludicrous turnover from him. Then we get another, Brandon Echols, who always is there for turnovers, one-handed interception. And, you know, it kind of felt like the Jets started to take control of the game. They were not able to step on the throat. We had to sweat this out till the very end. But if you take a bigger step back, they won on the road. They won on a short week against a team with a good defense, who I think is physical. I think anyone could say that. They had no DJ Reed, and they had no CJ Mosley for most of this game. They lose Jermaine Johnson to a season-ending injury, it seems, in the second half. And they still found a way to win. And it was not pretty, and it was not perfect, and I'm not making excuses for the defense. They only allowed 17 points. They made the plays when they needed to late.
Right.
But it's still, they are allowing far too many yards. The lack of discipline remains very troubling. The lack of clock and game management on the offensive side of the ball remains troubling. However, like you said, it's hard to win, and they found a way to win. And why you have Aaron Rodgers is for that drive when it's 17-17, and he drops that throw to Garrett Wilson, who people were getting frustrated with today because Sneed was on him, makes the over-the-other-shoulder catch, and you throw it up to Mike Williams, who makes his first catch of the season, goes up and gets it, and they go down and they score a touchdown, and they find a way to win. And late in the game, a guy that we've stuck with, and you in particular have stuck with, Will McDonald, really gets the kill shot.
Yeah.
Three sacks today. And they're going to need him more than ever, and they're going to need Hassan Reddick back. There's no way around it. We'll talk more about that with Johnson out. McDonald is a guy in the first drive of the game and the last drive of the game who was a closer, and that's what they needed. And it doesn't matter if it's not pretty and you couldn't wrap up on that other one where Levis scrambled. At the end of the game, they were able to get away with the victory, playing far from perfect. And why I try to keep some optimism, why I'm not changing all my predictions or anything. One, I thought they'd be 1-1 after 2 games, and they are. Two, guys like Rodgers, AVT, Mike Williams, they are just getting back into like real football shape. Rodgers, I would say, did not play great today. He had some nice moments in the second half. He looked really rusty today. Clearly, Mike Williams is not all the way back yet. He has 1 catch through 2 weeks. It was a great catch. Hopefully there's more of it. They badly need pass catchers. And guys like AVT, guys even like Braylon Allen, who, hey, play the rookies right away. We do this every year. Just play him. He's ready to go. They're going to get better and get into bigger roles. Let's start with the defense, and let's start with McDonald and how they go ahead in a post-Johnson world and how even they handle, like, if I'm the Jets right now in this schedule, I'm not rushing Mosley and Reed back on a short week. I'm saying, like, take the 2 weeks, get healthy for the Denver game. Sherwood seemed good enough today for Mosley, and I think you're fine with Eccles in there holding the fort down for Reed. Johnson, that's a whole different story.
It's totally different.
Just a really depressing sub-headline from the game today. So let's start with the defense, and what are your thoughts there?
Right. So let's start with McDonald, who, it's funny how the NFL works, especially for a position like an edge rusher, where McDonald is so often a guy that the advanced numbers look pretty good, and the actual raw box score numbers always underwhelm. And that's always going to create a mass divide of the people that are like, this dude can't sack the quarterback, total bust of a first round pick, or he doesn't stop the run, total bust, versus the people that maybe go too far. And I could even fall into this bucket at times and go, well, when he's in true pass rush situations, which is why you drafted him where you did, he's actually making an impact. And then today, before the last sack, it felt like he kind of fell in to 2 sacks, but that's just kind of everything falling into place, falling into balance, where this is a guy that's had those moments where he should have had more numbers. So he gets some numbers today. And then the most important one that arguably helped the Jets close out this game was a real pass rush opportunity on 3rd and 8 with 29 seconds left, where he gets a good jump off the ball. He's able to rip under the right tackle, and this is why guys like this get drafted as high as they do. You see the burst, you see the ability to kind of bend his body after that rip, and with his long-ass arms, grab onto Levis's shoulder pad and finish a play, where a lot of guys, even in this game, miss finishing plays against Will Levis, and he starts running around like an absolute maniac. That was an absolute game-clinching-ish play from McDonald, and that's huge because it's huge for his confidence, and it's huge for everybody to look around and go, okay, we got an absolute dude flying off the edge. God forbid they ever get Hassan Reddick back in here. If the Jets are playing with leads, legitimately, and this was always kind of my idea, and I'm sure the Jets feel the same way, when the Jets are playing with the lead, if they could ever get Reddick here, Reddick and McDonald flying off the edge was the dream, and Jermaine was going to be probably kicking inside and rushing inside, and we'll get into losing Jermaine in a second. So, big week for McDonald. Good for him. Good for his confidence. I thought Kinlaw really stepped up against the run today. They needed a big-bodied, beef, space-eating presence in the middle. I thought he held his end of the bargain. I'm looking forward to watching the tape and kind of figuring out why it felt like a quiet day for Quinnen Williams. But Kinlaw stood out. I thought the speed of Sherwood and Quincy Williams really, really stood out. That's the difference, too, of you look at the Niners guys, not only the way they're coached, but how quickly not only Kittle and Juszczyk, but their linemen can get hands on you, and that wiped out the Jets linebackers. Today, the Jets linebackers weren't wiped out because not a lot of teams can play the way the Niners do, not even a Bill Callahan coach team. So Quincy was flying around making plays. Sherwood was flying around making plays. I thought Kinlaw did a lot of the dirty work in the middle and was trying to hold up his end of the bargain to eat some space. I thought Eccles, besides the pick, was also really, really good. And ironically enough, this is the worst game I've watched on broadcast of Sauce Gardner's career. So, and you got to kind of ask yourself in these things. And this is why, as the the hours went further away from the time ticking down to 0. I actually felt better about this win because when you're in the moment, number one, the first quarter was dreadful. They looked undisciplined.
Scary.
They looked timid. On defense, it kind of felt like a repeat of last week, and they didn't look confident, and they were sitting on their heels. But the way they finished the game, why I feel a little bit better about it is Sauce Gardner this is not the player Sauce Gardner is. Maybe he's not the best corner in the NFL, but he's a hell of a lot better player than what we saw today. And the reality is, adjusting on the fly to losing two of your top players, definitely two of your top players in the front seven, and CJ Mosley and Jermaine Johnson, that's really hard to do. And the Jets were able to do it. And shout out to Sherwood and Quincy shifting where he was lined up and making plays to get that done. So that's a shout out to them. Shout out to McDonald for having that sack at the end of the game, because honestly, the guy you're probably most concerned about blocking is Jermaine, and he wasn't on the field. And I mean, real talk, like Clemens just doesn't give them anything. I'm not going to spend any more time on this podcast saying it, but it's at the point where he's a liability out there. And credit to Solomon Thomas, who wasn't today. Solomon Thomas made some plays today, and that's usually a problem. So Solomon Thomas made some plays today. I know Holmes got some snaps against the run and was fine again. The big conundrum the Jets are facing, and there was a lot of really good things today, and we'll talk about the offense as well, but those are the things that stood out to me on defense. And I thought Tony Adams, by the way, had a much better game than week one, specifically in coverage, which is why he's on the field. I don't know, especially in 3 days, but I don't even know if I have the answer in 2 weeks, what the answer is to filling Jermaine's spot. I guess what they think they have to do is just put Clemens on the field in that spot and kind of pray. But the reality is it's probably 3 different people that need to replace what Jermaine does, because he plays all 3 downs. He's a good pass rusher. I know he got devoured by Trent Williams, but everybody does. He's a pretty good edge setter as well. So I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm almost at the point where I look at it and go, maybe in 3 days, because you're in such a bind and you can't figure this out, maybe Solomon Thomas just plays end. I mean, he's a small defensive tackle. Maybe he just has to play Jermaine's role for one game against the Patriots, a game you should win, but it's not going to be that easy. And then you kind of figure it out from there, whether it's getting Reddick back in the fold. I'm not holding my breath, signing somebody off the street that can help out a little bit. But that puts them in a really brutal spot for a guy that plays so many snaps for this defense.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about this a little more on the Tuesday, Wednesday versions, but they're going to need Reddick and someone, I feel like, for the long haul, because there's that many like reps to fill. Like,
I agree.
Without question, they have to find a way to get Reddick back now. He has that much more leverage, which is disappointing. It has to come to this, but they just need him. They needed him before Jermaine getting hurt, but now they really need him. Right. But you also need someone else who can help fill some of the other stuff Jermaine does and just chew up reps. And I don't know if that's Watts or Taylor getting off the inactive list and getting bigger roles and in some shape or form.
So if Solomon plays the role I'm talking about, Taylor should be up to take on his interior role. That would be my thought, but I don't know if the Jets are going to do that.
You also have to be like very like matchup specific. You're playing the Patriots, who are about as one-dimensional as it gets, right? Their whole offense is Ramondre Stevenson. If Jacoby Brissett can beat you with that group of pass catchers, then great. It's very similar to what we said this week about the Titans. And to the Jets' credit,
Titans
that's kind of how they played. That's kind of how they played it, though, right? They stopped the run game ultimately, and they said Levis will make some mistakes, and he did.
High school offense.
He made 2 big mistakes, and he couldn't win the game late. It's going to be a similar script for New England. Put 11 guys in the box against Ramondre Stevenson and make anybody else beat you on a short week. Make all the defensive linemen active, like load it up, and again, find a way. Again, I don't want them to press Mosley because you don't want him to have that nagging injury. But Surratt was fine when he had to play. Sherwood in particular was fine. Quincy, I thought, was all-pro today.
He was Quincy from last year.
True, all-pro, excellent. I saw a lot of – I want to see the snap count. It felt like there was a lot of Isaiah Oliver on the back end. Maybe he took
I'll tell you in a
Davis's,
second.
Situational role. Clark, I mean –
Oliver played 24 snaps.
That's a lot. So did Ashton Davis play it all on defense? Did he basically take that role from him?
Wow, you're right. Yeah.
So that's, I mean, look, that's and credit to Ulbrich, right? That's looking at week 1 where Ashton Davis was horrific and benching him for Isaiah Oliver. And Adams was a little better. Clark, he's been a bit of a liability so far. I mean, that Sauce was not good today. Clark needs to intercept that pass.
That ball was in the air forever.
You got to get over and intercept that pass. I think Sauce was shocked he didn't. Not an excuse.
He did look shocked.
Dude, that. I mean, that touchdown was insane. That's a 1 out of 10 touchdown. Generally, the Jets defense locked it up in the second half. Beyond that, offensively, I mean, man, it hit a very grim spot halfway through the first quarter where I felt like their first 11 plays were handoffs to Breece Hall, like pitches to Breece Hall, handoffs to Breece Hall. Finally, they spread out. They got Braylon Allen out there, which helped a lot. They listened. They're subscribing. 2 backs out there at the same time. Lo and behold, what happens?
Oh, what a dream.
Braylon Allen's making plays, and probably, and I saw you say this on Twitter, the best play call we've seen from Hackett.
I think so.
They set this up with the pony look where they went one way to Breece, and then they faked it, came back to Allen. That's how he got his first touchdown. And I think we're at a point right now with Mike Williams not healthy yet, no trade deadline move. The offense has to run through Breece Hall and Braylon Allen. They had 70% of the offense today as runners, as pass catchers. You saw Braylon Allen catch a hitch route. You saw Breece catch a ton of passes, and in the second half, he got going at a 30-yard run. He catches the fade ball, which is insane to his athleticism. They are, especially when defenses are keying on Garrett, they are easily the second and third best options everywhere, including the pass game. So credit to the Jets for skewing to that. And again, I would not say it was a better Hackett game than week 1. He's obviously still Hackett. Rodgers made the plays when he needed to, but clearly there was a lot of discourse about like the play clock stuff. Like, this is how Rodgers plays. It's by design. It can't be by design to have to burn 2 timeouts in the second half. Like,